Hello Darktide community. The reason I'm recording this video is to share my Hive Scum build focused on surviving. I am a casual Auric enjoyer with 840 hours in game, my account level is 930, and just like everyone else I've been really struggling with this class until this build came together. I can't call myself particularly skilled, I make a lot of mistakes, so my goal was to increase survivability as much as possible while maintaining acceptable damage. This build really helped me to start enjoying the class, and I hope it can achieve the same for you. Disclaimer: no idea if any of this will work in Havoc because I don't play it. I will also not be posting gameplay footage because frankly my PC is garbage and FPS is not that great as it is, so recording a video will make me suffer while playing just to make you suffer watching. Just know that it totally works in Auric, and that's the reason for it really. So instead of recording gameplay footage, I will explain every decision I made for this build so you can judge for yourself. I'm open to suggestions, so feel free to leave a comment. For the melee weapons, I went with Shifts Mark 1 for the single target damage. In general for this build it is very important you get a weapon with high attack speed, high crit and mobility. You will understand why later. Combat knife should work as well if you're into it, although I believe Shifts are a better weapon overall. Dump stat here is mobility. Perks are Carapace and Unyielding, because those are only enemy types that would ever give you any trouble, apart from Drag Rages. And, well, Scab Rages are also partially Carapace, so... For the blessings, pick Flesh Terror and Uncanny. It will give you a combination of bleeds and rending to bring down tough foes. Try not to forget about throwing knives, their damage is surprisingly high even into armor. In general, your damage against Carapace will not be spectacular on its own, but that is only if you don't throw knives or shoot them with the needle before you engage. I can't stress enough how impactful those are against crushes and bosses. Make sure to always try shooting difficult targets or throwing a knife or three before you run into them. Or even just shoot them and go kill something else, the dots will just do the work for you. Quick tutorial here. Do note that Combat Knife has a much better version of Uncanny Strike Blessing, which should ultimately result in better damage of the knife itself and any dots sticking while the knife is drawn to armored targets. More testing is required, however at this time I still don't believe it's worth switching the shifts for a knife in this build, because of a throwing attack being really useful and the heavies and shifts doing more flat damage in general. For the ranged weapon, Needler is hands down the best option because of its fire and forget nature, as well as being able to snipe targets from long range. Feel free to use any of the two marks. Mark 6 does more damage to single targets with primary mode, while Mark 2 does way more damage to groups with alternative mode. Yeah, actually Explosive Strain is pretty weak compared to the Contagion Strain of Mark 2, its only saving grace being that it generates a little AoE stagger, but you really don't need that at range. Dump stat here is ammo, because mobility is more important and we have Pickpocket generating 18 shots when you're in red, which is enough. In fact, please don't try to conserve ammo like at all. This is what makes this gun so scary. Perks are, again, Carapace and Unyielding. You will be shooting both a lot. For the blessings, Run and Gun is mandatory because of minus 30% spread, which will allow you to snipe ranged targets pretty effectively. For the second blessing I went with Hot Shot, which allows to hit more target with a needle if you hit the head, and thus apply more dots. That said, Stripped Down may actually be even better situationally, because with it you can just ignore ranged packs and close distance while shooting at the same time. Just remember that Rampage drains all stamina upon expiration, making you lose the effect of Stripped Down. I died horribly a couple of times when I failed to take that into account. For the Curios, all three are exactly the same: Toughness, Gunner Resist, Toughness, Health. And I know what you're thinking, I actually never run Gunner Resist on any of my classes and always take Ability Reduction, but this class is just built different. 60% resistance here is way more impactful compared to minus 3.6 seconds of rampage cooldown, which is not even ticking while the ability is on, making the effect further diminished. Even on Auric, you can end up obliterated by a random gunner pack. Remember, as I've said before, rampage drains all stamina upon expiration and also reduces your DR. If you are caught in the open at that moment, you are very dead. Finally, health is optional, but you really don't need stamina or stamina regen for Auric. This class has enough of both. So what are you even gonna pick then? Revive speed? More often than not, it's you who needs reviving, not the other way around. Next, let's discuss Stimm Lab. No surprise here, we take crits and damage resistance. We're going to run this with sample collector talent to reduce the Stimm cooldown, which will mitigate the extra cooldown added by DR3. Yeah, DR3 is honestly quite weak, but we really don't have many sources of DR on this class, so take what you can get. You may also do like this or this, so that you speed down the cooldown a little. The crit branch will provide a whole bunch of synergies to help us survive too. They will be covered in the next section. Oh, and if you're listening, Fat Shark, please add some kind of alternative to all the green stims that we miss to this tree, maybe to the DR branch specifically, because Pox gas missions are specifically outrageous without it, especially if you're running 4 Scums. You get all of those green stims lying everywhere, and nobody can even use them. When it comes to talents, if you just want to see the build, then here it is. You may stop watching now. I will now explain all the decisions I made here, so if you don't need that, you might as well not watch it. We'll start with the right side of the tree, where we absolutely need to pick precision violence and float like a butterfly. There are several reasons for focus on crits so much. Firstly, precision violence will return more toughness, and that talent is really powerful. Secondly, adrenaline frenzy will generate more stacks, which will activate toughness regen from adrenaline unbound. Lastly, chem toxin from coated weaponry will apply, enabling effects of targeted toxin, toxin mania, and sample collector. Targeted toxin and sample collector specifically will help you survive by reducing incoming damage from poison targets and cooling down your Stimm faster, which in turn will give you damage reduction and also restore a little toughness on use, which actually comes in handy more often than you would think. Oh, and the blitz from your shifts will also get applied, for all the good that it does. Attention Welcome is the only viable path to get to those talents as of December 9 patch. Since Sticky Hands got moved, it is no longer interesting even slightly, especially since we switched to melee immediately with Rampage and don't have any grenade draw animation with Blackout. Plus we run and gun, plus we don't really do hip fire that much, and if we do, it's on close range where you don't need to target, yada yada yada. Plus a little damage is nice, since you really don't get a lot of damage talents in this build. From here we go to Burst of Energy, which is mandatory. This is an obviously strong talent, and at this point there are no alternatives. I think honorable mention is calling for a timeout. It may come handy circumstantially, since you would want to switch between shift and pistol a lot, including a short range, and pistol needs reloading quite often, but we don't really have free points to get it, and if we did, there are still better talents to pick. When it comes to blitzes, both Blackout and Chem Grenades are viable paths to take. I actually used Chem Grenade in this build before because it just completely busted, kills everything, prevents hordes from closing in, and makes Simulation Grenade of Zealot look a complete joke in comparison. But now that Blackout got fixed, it fits this build perfectly and I wouldn't have it any other way. It is instant stagger on demand with built-in charge regeneration, and I personally hate blitzes that don't regenerate because having to ration your grenades ends up in a lot of missed opportunities, and because cocking veterans keep stealing my grenade pickups. Blackout also applies Chem Toxin via Pocket Toxin talent, which practically makes it Shredder Grenade light, with no animation, no explosion delay, and all the synergies Chem Toxin brings, which is just perfect. I guess we can also discuss the rocket launcher while we're at it. Please don't pick it after the December 9 patch. It can theoretically come in handy when you're getting cornered by an armored wave, you have no time and you need to solve the problem like immediately right now. But Blackout can serve the same purpose on top of all its other benefits, and Chem Grenade still does way more damage, albeit over time. Fat Shark, if you're listening, this blitz really needs some kind of regeneration mechanic to make it viable and fun. Just pumping the damage numbers won't achieve anything. I'd honestly recommend rolling back the damage increase changes you made and just adding timed regeneration instead, like veteran and biters have. 90 seconds, like on a shock mine, would be nice. I'd personally even agree to 2 full minutes. We now move to the middle of the tree. Gang Tough can't be skipped and thus not worth dwelling on. Nimble is a great talent in theory and should definitely get included into this build. Talents of this kind are good in any class. Although, judging by what people wrote on December 9 patch Fat Shark forums thread, it is currently broken and does the direct opposite of helping. Fat Shark acknowledged the problem and mentioned it's in the pipeline, so I will leave it in the build, but feel free to switch it for some other talent in the meantime. I recommend good old hyperviolence. Slippery Customer is something I always wanted from the game, and I'm happy to see it get included on this character. I've lost count of times when I would slide away from the enemy expecting the next attack to not hit me because of distance, only to lose health and grind my teeth. Although this talent does build some bad habits, and experienced players might even skip it. That said, experienced players with solid mechanical skills would probably not be looking for such a build in the first place. It is for us, crab-handed denizens of the lower Hive, and not godlike level femboys of Throneside. Jittery is my number one candidate for throwing out of the build in favor of hyperviolence, for several reasons. Firstly, if you ration your dodges correctly, you wouldn't even need it that much. Secondly, if you slide shortly after a dodge or perform a dodge slide, you lose the effect, and that is intended behavior. That said, I'm personally having a hard time rationing my dodges. I'm the very definition of jittery, so I would personally keep it. Pretty sure it already saved me from more than a few crusher overheads. Lastly, Tisbot Scratch is mandatory for anyone, I believe. I can't stress enough how important it is to have toughness over time effects on top of conditional instant replenishment. It will save a lot of your health. Anyone who played, for example, Zealot with enemies within enemies without, or Veteran with confirmed kill, would understand what I mean. There are only two sources of toughness over time in Hive Scum, the other being Adrenaline Unbound, and I believe you should pick both for this build to work. For the aura, we pick Anarchist, because again, we really need those crits markers. Other two auras are nice, but they don't serve the purpose of this build. From here, we move through the toughness node to pick our active ability, Rampage, with its modifier Forge's Bellow. What I like about Rampage is that it is both a damage ability and a no shit button. Upon activation, you'll replenish all toughness and also shout, knocking back nearby enemies, so you can stagger bosses with it like the veteran does with his voice of command. After that, for a pretty long time you get a massive bonus to your damage resist, melee power and attack speed. It's really synergistic with everything else we have in this build, and the synergy even goes both ways. Getting more attack speed means you get more toughness return from on-hit talents, and stack your adrenaline frenzy faster, And when you stack your Adrenaline Frenzy, you get even more attack speed, which means you get to do more hits during the duration of Rampage and thus keep it active for longer. The drawback is that once it ends, you immediately lose all stamina and get massive reduction to stamina regen and DR for 7 seconds. Forger's Bellow does help to mitigate that effect a little by knocking back all nearby enemies once again, so getting hit by melee is unlikely. But it's the ranged enemies you should be worried about, because you can't even sprint away having no stamina at this point. That said, most of the time you get out of Rampage, you already have Adrenaline Bound ticking, and in addition, you have Tis But a Scratch, and you have Gun Resist on your Curios, so you should be fine. Still, do try to notice when Rampage ends and not take unnecessary hits. Now that we've finally reached the bottom of the tree, we would like to branch in all directions to pick talents from each side. To the left, we take Pickpocket, which is the only talent investment our Needler will ever require. Ammo Jack serves as the shortest path to said talent, and also adds one more shot before reload, which is actually quite nice when you want to poison several tough targets in one go. To the right, we need the two abilities to apply our toxins, Coated Weaponry and Pocket Toxin, as well as Sampa Collector to cool down our Stimms, and Targeted Toxin to weaken the attacks of affected enemies, reducing the damage they make to the entire team. Toxin Mania serves as a text note here, because I really don't believe extra pouches is required for a blitz that already has 5 charges and regeneration. Plus, again, a little damage is nice to have in a build where most talents are about survival. In the middle of the tree, we want to pick City Brawler, which is one of the few talents giving us flat DR, and our Keystone talent with its modifiers. To get to the City Brawler, both punching above one's weight and battering strikes are viable paths. Having some cleave is also a form of security, since you literally clear the space around you. In my opinion, the former talent provides much more value, however, against targets that actually matter. And I never felt that my cleave was lacking either. Every horde is just a bunch of adrenaline stacks, unless it's an armor horde, which we can't cleave anyway in this build. Finally, I've already talked about Adrenaline Frenzy quite a bit, so I wouldn't really concentrate on it much. Yeah, on its own, it's honestly quite weak, even with its modifiers. Just compare it with something just like 1 talent point and Veteran's Weapon Specialist. But as I've mentioned before, it's rather synergistic with everything else we've took, and it provides toughness over time via Adrenaline Unbound, which I believe is mandatory to have in a build that wants to be able to take hits. Stoke Rage is another mandatory pick to let the effect last longer, but uncontrolled aggression can be skipped. It's actually nice to have because this build likes to switch weapons, and you would also lose less stacks when moving from one encounter to the next. It can be a difference between getting your toughness regen activated in like the first few seconds of your next combat encounter, or having to wait for it while possibly getting hit. That said, this node is not mandatory and I feel totally fine without it. In a lot of cases I find its effect is just redundant, so I decided to just skip it. As an alternative to Adrenaline Frenzy, you can totally go with Chemical Dependency with Enhanced and Fortified, so you'd get Rampage cooldown reduction, Toughness DR and Crit, but you will lose the regeneration. I haven't tested it, but I believe it is at least viable in this build. Thank you for watching. I hope this build comes in handy, or at least allows you to try something new. I don't really plan to post any other Darktide content on my channel. I don't really have any kind of aspirations as a Darktide content creator. I just wanted to share this with my fellow Hive Scums because I see a lot of people really struggling in Auric with survival. That said, if you did somehow enjoy it, I do have other characters, and I really don't follow the usual norms with them. So, in case you want to know about them too, drop a comment, and maybe if I see that that's what people want, I can do it. Thank you. Have a good day, and I hope you all survive the RAM crisis. See you on the battlefield of the first NVIDIA Shuri War. Goodbye.